Hello internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion, those videos in which I tell you my opinion on a book, and today's book is going to be Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. As you guys may already know, this has been one of my favorite books. All out 5 stars. It was hilarious. It was great. I loved it, and I highly recommend this book. So, if you're not familiar with this book or this plot, this takes place in a high fantasy world where gathering bands of people together and creating like a little fighting band is a common practice, and it used to be a really good thing that you used to do back in the day. It kind of has evolved into something different in the current times, but it used to be just a bunch of warriors getting together, riding off together and fighting monsters and slaying things, and basically just going on quests and missions and being the heroes of the day. So this follows a band called Saga, who back in the day were legends. They were the best of the best. They were known for doing all the amazing things. Like, they are absolute legends, and now 20 years later they're getting the band back together. So they had a fallout and everyone has kind of gone their own way. We follow Clay Cooper and his friend Gabe, who used to be the sort of frontman singer type guy for the band. He was like basically the glorious blonde-headed hero, so he was sort of the frontman for the band, for the whole band. And he comes to Clay and he's like, Clay, my daughter is in danger. So Gabe has this like 20-year-old daughter who has gone off, started her own band, and now she's on like the other side of the world, and she's in danger because there's a revolution and revolt happening there with a lot of monsters coming out. And Gabe's really worried about his kid because he's like, she's gonna die there if they don't have any backup. It's only her and a couple people. Like, they need backup, they need my help, and I want to go and save my kid. So he ends up convincing Clay to go along with him, and they slowly collect all their other friends on the journey, which consists of a roguish king who's not so much of a rogue anymore, a gay wizard who has a very special toxin for erectile dysfunction, and a man who has been frozen for a really long time because of crimes he committed. So the band gets back together and you watch them as they blunder through life, and you really get a feel for who they are as characters. So I really like this storytelling style. It's all told through this perspective of Clay, and he's recounting a lot of old-timey stuff. Like, he's recounting how different it was back in his day, recounting backstories on all of his friends, kind of reminiscing a lot. And Clay is a quiet, strong character, and so for him to tell this story in the way he does, really giving you this reminiscent background where he looks at one of his friends and he's like, man, I remember when this idiot did that thing. It feels really natural. Like, it feels like, hey, I'm just this old dude reminiscing on the past while living in the present. So it really gives a natural way for you to learn about what Saga was like before, when they were 20 years younger, and what they are now. I also really like how realistic it was. Like, I mean, as realistic as like fighting monsters in the woods would be, but I really like how realistic it was in the sense that these were old dudes. They didn't come out here like, Red, just like mowing down people. Like, they had skills, yes, but they were so out of practice. So a lot of this is just watching them be really bad at things, and you're just like, are these legends? Like, really? These were the big time heroes? They're super unfit now. And I like seeing that. I like seeing them kind of blunder their way through, really get back into the motion of actually seeing each other all the time and talking to each other and having to deal with these events together, and every character is reacting differently to this experience being relived, because it's like going back to high school days. Like, they might have been fun, but do you really want to go back to high school? Like, it sort of gave that sort of atmosphere. I also liked how you really got a feel for every single character and what their life was like after them being crowned the ultimate heroes and the ultimate band. And you really see how, like, life after herodom isn't always A+ and shining and rainbows and all of this great fun stuff. You are still a person people shit happens to you, real life gets to you, and not everyone's gonna have like that happy ending. That's simply not what gonna happen. So after the stories of the legends are done, this is what's left behind. So I really like this book. I like that they kept fighting, that they kept fucking up all the time. It was hilarious, but it was like believable. Like they ended up getting themselves through every situation, and like, by the way Clay makes it sound, it seems like they've always been like that, except like now they got old bones, so it's even a little bit more risky. I like the new characters introduced. I loved how the story was told. I liked how they went through it. I liked that by the end of it, when these guys are going all out and being badass, you're like, oh yes, because like you've been working up for it. You've been watching them like train, going through like being robbed by a bunch of people in the woods. Like you've been watching them, and by the time it comes to that big final battle, that big huge epic scene where you get to see these legends be the legends they are, you're there for it. It's not like a 0 to 100. It's a progression. You slowly learning about these people. You slowly learning about their lives. It's also really, really funny. It is a funny book. I love how these friends banter with each other, and I like how you can really tell that they are good friends. Like they haven't seen each other in like 20 years, but like immediately they start bantering with each other and talking to each other. And yes, they have serious moments from time to time, because you haven't seen each other in 20 years. You probably got some serious conversations to be talking about, but the ease in which they converse with each other, which they banter with each other, was really nice. I don't think the humor in this book will be for everybody, because there are some points where the humor relies on a certain type of humor that I don't think everybody will enjoy. So a lot of times they have crude humor jokes that they're nothing like horrible or disrespectful or anything like that, but if like you don't personally find crude humor funny and joking and like doing stuff like that hilarious, or like gets a giggle out of you, then there's going to be a lot of jokes in this book that you might not like, and you're gonna be like, eh. There are tons of other jokes told in tons of other ways in this book, but that is a main point of the comedy, and I think if you don't like that, you might not like this book. Out of this whole book, I think there was only one thing that I was kind of about. Otherwise, I really liked the book. I thought it was really great. So I'm going to tell you the one thing I was about. That is a spoiler, so if like you're done hearing me talk about stuff and you want to go and read this book yourself, I think you should. If you love high fantasy, if you love stories about like old dudes trying to be their young selves again, trying to go out there and fight people, it's gonna be great. It has a lot of interesting monsters and characters in it that feel more like, it feels more than just them going on an adventure. Like you're along with them, you're learning about these people and who they are, and you really feel a part of the band, a part of the team. And every time they confront an enemy, it's not just like, well, time for a fight scene. There's a little bit more investment and pull there to keep you there, to keep you interested. And it was really fun to see this dynamic of like these old dudes trying to figure out how the new world works and how the world has kind of moved on without them, and them trying to adjust to that change, as well adjust to the changes with themselves and with the other people in their band. So I loved it. Now, onto the one little spoiler. It's not like a huge spoiler, but it is the one little thing that I didn't hate about the book, but I was like, okay, fine. So there comes a point where Clay, our the main character who's narrating the story, gets his hand cut off. He's in the middle of a fight and his hand gets lopped off, and he ends up like falling down a cliff and stuff, and he has only one hand. Now, we watch him struggle through a journey, being like injured, falling off a cliff, only having one hand right now, the one he used to have two. And I found that interesting. I was like, man, now this guy has to go to that big battle scene with only one hand. And I thought it was really cool because like Clay is left-handed, so he puts his shield on his right hand. I think like Clay is left-handed, so he carries his shield on his, I can't remember what What does it say in this picture? Okay, so Clay is left-handed, and he carries his shield on his right arm. His left hand gets cut off. So this is it. So Clay's left-handed, right? And his left hand gets cut off because that is his hammer hand. He has his huge shield that is black heart, and we are told that constantly. That was one thing that I was like a little irritated by. I was like, man, we know where he got his shield. After like the 5th time they told me that, I was like, boy, stop telling me what tree his shield came from. I got the thing. I got it. I got where he got his shield. Anyway, he carries his shield on his right arm, and he has a axe that he carries around in his left hand. His left hand ends up getting cut off. He ends up like falling down this cliff, really injured, really horribly. And now I'm just like, well, how is he gonna fight in this main battle? Like, he still has a shield arm, so like that's cool. He mainly focuses on the shield because most of this book is this boy losing his weapons. He only ever keeps his shield. He loses all of his other weapons. So like, you know, that's per normal. He knows how to fight without like a sword or an axe, because the boy loses his knives all the time. Point is, he has one hand. So I thought that was really interesting. We have a warrior here who has one hand. He's going to have to figure out how to fight. It's going to be really cool. Maybe he has to like slide his shield onto his other one, like his other hand. Maybe he has to like duct tape like a sword to his arm now so that he can fight. That would have been really cool. But after him struggling through the mountains, finally getting back to the team, they regrow his hand in a day. And I was like, okay, lost opportunity. I thought it would have been really cool to have a character who was like visibly had a disability of some sort that was really going to hurt them in some way, and having that be like the final price, right? It was a price to pay for going on this last final adventure. I thought it would be really interesting to see where he's going to go from there, especially in the final battle and proceeding with only one hand and how he's going to fight. I thought it'd be really cool, right? But he grows back his hand in the next chapter after struggling along with only one hand. So that was the only thing that really disappointed me. Like I said, it's not a big thing. It's not that big a deal. And like, however you wanted to tell a story and have him fight with 2 hands, okay, fine. But I sort of just wanted him to be one-hand Clay, and him having to duct tape like a sword onto his arm, and like him have the shield and like the sword arm. Yeah. But I guess if like that's the only disappointing thing that happens in a book this size, the book must be pretty great, right? So highly suggest go and read it, go and buy it. Definitely put out your pre-order for Bloody Rose. Bloody Rose is going to be the book following this one. It's in the same world. It's going to be following Gabe's daughter, who is introduced in this book. So you're going to learn more about her. There are a lot of plots and scenes going on outside of just like these guys going to save the girl. You find out about the schemes and the plans and how all of this connects to who they were before and what they were when Saga was the legend that it was when they were young and famous originally. So I loved how all of that tied into their past. It ties into their present. It's gonna go forth in Bloody Rose, and she's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be really interesting because like this book really focused on, here's some old guys living in this new world and trying to figure out how they are dealing with this new concept of what a band is supposed to be when they are the ones who made bands a legendary thing, right? And it's gonna be like really cool to see the second book where you are seeing like the new kids on the block and their new world, them never really knowing what it was like back in the day for people, and I think it'd be awesome. So yeah, go grab that book, read this book, just read in general. I think you'll have a good time. I honestly do. It's a good story with great characters and really sucks you in and pulls you in and entertains the hell out of you. So, if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.